Can I ask a dumb one?
Are you asking a dumb person? Are you asking a dumb question? I don't
No,
know.
Tevin's not dumb. I'm gonna go ahead and speak on his behalf. This question comes from Tevin, and he emailed podcast at personalfinanceclub.com, and so can you. And Tevin actually said that he used ChatGPT to make his question shorter. So shout out to you because it's very short. And I picked this question specifically because it's one that I actually kind of had for you. Like, I don't know how many people, I don't think we've actually talked about on this podcast, but I don't know how many people know your story, and how you became a millionaire, why you're a millionaire, and how you've maintained that. And Tevin actually did a really great job of asking the question. So maybe you can go a little bit into your backstory and then answer Tevin's question. But he asks, I get that building wealth can sound simple, just keep investing in index funds, right? But what are you actually doing all that time? How did you get rich spending all your time exploring and building this hobby of wealth and investment? And from what I know about you, you are very transparent about how you made your money and how you continue to make more money. So, but for people who don't know you, how did you get here? And what, and I specifically asked last week, what were you doing before, the big, I'll let you get into it, but yeah, what were you doing
Okay.
beforehand?
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of transparency with money because I think there's all this like secrecy and shame around it, and people don't want to talk about how much debt they have or what their investments are or how much money they make. And when wealthy people, especially on social media, like, oh yeah, I bought this private flight, or I'm a millionaire, I do this, and it just feels like there's this like, what's behind the curtain, what's really going on. And I try to constantly, in my mind, the curtain was wide open and you can come poke your head and you can look in my bank account and you can see everything. But for sure, I know that I'm much more aware of all the content I've created on all the different platforms and someone who's coming for the first time. So I'll try to lay it out here. I went to college, got a good degree from the University of Michigan in computer science. I got a job offer from Microsoft. And I turned it down. I was a computer science major. I'm a computer programmer by trade. And instead, I started a company. And even that is probably sounds very abstract to a lot of people. It did to me. I had no idea what I was doing. I Googled how to start a company. I did not, have my hands in the Silicon Valley world. In fact, that company, we never raised a single dollar of funding. I was literally just a dude with a laptop Googling how to start company and trying to get people to give me money and,
Hmm.
maybe not go to jail by the IRS for breaking some sort of tax law I wasn't aware of.
Right.
That's really what it was. And over the course of the next 12 years, I was trying to grow that company. It was an internet company. We sold basically apartment advertising. So landlords would, use our website to advertise their rental properties on dozens of different websites. Um, and throughout that time, my max take home pay was $36,000 a year. I was the lowest paid employee at my company. We went up growing to a team of 7, not a huge company, still a very small company, of course. But just in order to grow the company, I was paying myself as little as I could essentially live on in San
Hmm.
Diego. That went up until 2015. So for sure, $2015 to $2025 are different, but not that different. I was living in San Diego, so maybe it's equivalent of making $40,000 or $45,000 these days in San Diego. It's it's living lean. It's not poverty, but it's living lean.
Hmm.
Um, and during that time, I basically just lived on less than I made. So if I was making $3,000 a month, I'd live on $2,600 a month or something. My rent was 1,000 because I had roommates. My car was like 200. I drove a used car. I just ate very inexpensively from the grocery store. I was, I had no kids at the time, and I played beach volleyball, which is free, short of buying a couple of volleyballs each year or whatever it was. Um, and the day before I sold my company, my net worth had grown to about $110,000, which is, you know, not a ton of money, but living on 36,000 bucks a year, living below your means, putting away, it's kind of almost exactly like that $500 a month example I gave in the compound growth section
Right.
3 minutes ago, where I was saving my few $100 a month. It wasn't always 500, but over the course of 10 years, like maybe it was $5,000 a year. $5,000 a year times 10 years is 50,000 bucks I saved. Add all the compound growth in there and you double it, and that's like the 100,000 bucks. And that's where I was. And I was certainly on pace to become a millionaire by traditional retirement age. But then I sold my company for just over $5 million. in cash, which was very nice. At the time, I owned 70% of the company. My mom owned 30%, and all the employees also had a stake. And so my share after taxes was about $2 million. I made all sorts of mistakes. I paid like $1 million in taxes, which I maybe wouldn't have needed to if I knew about certain tax laws when I was starting the company. But that's life, I guess.
Mhm.
And so my net worth went from like 0.1 million, which is 100,000, to 2.1 million with literally the click of a refresh button. And there's a video of me clicking refresh on my bank account website and it going from 100,000 to 2.1
Oh,
million.
I want to see
That
that.
yeah, I posted it. It's on YouTube. It's on Instagram.
Okay.
Maybe we'll repost it. And so, like I said, just
Yeah,
transparency. It was just a wire. It went to my bank account. That's what happened.
that's
And
funny.
then, and so when people hear that, they're like, "Oh, you're a tall, rich white guy who sold a tech company. How inspiring, how relatable." Yeah, I certainly get that that's not just like a very repeatable thing. But I will say, before I sold my company, I was living below my means in investing. $2 million in Southern California isn't a guaranteed lifetime of wealth and riches. If I bought $1 million home right then, half of it's gone. Plus, I picked up a $10,000 a year tax bill.
Hmm.
You add in a fancy car, some fancy trips, like, you can burn through that $2 million in a couple of years, and I could be
Right.
back to, I better get a high paying job just to afford the tax bill on this home, right?
Hmm.
Um, but that's not what I did. I kept living below my means. I kept driving the '99 Ford Explorer I was driving. I did eventually buy a Mazda. I know I'm another Mazda name dropper, and I got a Mazda chasing wife now. Um,
Mazda Chaser, that's what they call them.
yeah, exactly. Um, Another Mazda chaser, just so obvious. Uh, but yeah, that was so. While that was my story, the lesson there is, yeah, if you can start a company and grow and sell it, do it. I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship. But the real story is I could have gone broke at any of these stages, but before, during, and after the company acquisition, I was living below my means and investing. And now today, my net worth is north of $6 million. So that 2 million has become 6 million. And now, 6 million is a little bit more comfortable in the FIRE world, financial independence, retire early. And so, Tevin's question is like, what were you doing all that time? I was working,
Hmm.
growing companies, working at the company that acquired my company, and eventually I quit. And after about 2017, I haven't really had a serious income. I've been primarily living off of the growth of my investments, but
Hmm.
I'm still living frugally enough. These days, a little bit less with 2 kids and a wife, if you know what I mean. But these days, I'm living frugally enough that um, my wealth is continuing to grow. And it's been a good run in the stock market and yada yada yada. But it hasn't been that atypical. The market has returned about 10% a year over
Right.
any 10 or 15-year period. Um, you know, Historically. And so that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm going to keep doing, and just going to try to not live on small enough amount of my growth of my investments that I'll never need to work again to rebuild up my investments.
Nice. I love Tevin's question. It's obviously a question that I had myself. Because we know Jeremy the millionaire, but we don't necessarily know Jeremy who lived off of 40,000 or even 100,000 a year. And what I love about what you post and what you encourage in your courses is that you show people who are pretty much at any phase what they can do to improve their financial situation. You don't obviously need to be a millionaire to take this good financial advice. So I'm sure that's why Tevin loves your content and why he asked this question. So I hope that answers it. And I find you to be somebody who's very transparent. So that was great. And a little refresher for people who may not know your backstory.
Thanks. Yeah. Ask me those tough questions. I encourage you to ask me. The only thing I can't really be transparent about as much now is like things that involve my wife's finances, because she doesn't share my show your bank account to the world mentality, which is
Yeah,
reasonable because
you're
most people don't.
most people
And
don't. Yeah.
yeah, um, but yeah, I really just, you know, in a future episode, let's talk about the actual selling of the company, because that's always something that's been so abstract to me, which is like, what do you mean you sold a company? And like,
Right.
how'd you decide on a price, and who'd you sell it to, and how'd you negotiate all this stuff? And I'll tell the story.
Amazing. Okay, let's get into our next segment.